This is California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. Ben Allen is back. He is a nominee for the California State Senate, also a member of the Santa Monica Malibu Unified School District Board. And I want to speak with you about the campaign, a massive district, every state Senate district, about 1 million-ish people. You've been campaigning. What are you hearing? What are your constituents saying?
Oh, wow. Well, you know, this district goes from Hollywood right down to Santa Monica, right down the coast, all the coastal cities. And it includes actually Catalina Island and San Clemente Island. Beautiful place. I actually was just down in Avalon.
Yes.
People are talking about jobs in the economy still. People care a lot about public education. We've got a number of cities that are very proud of their school districts, but also fearful of what's to come and want to make sure that they're able to protect and preserve what makes those school districts strong. People, it's a very environmental district because it involves the coast. People really care a lot about protecting that coastline, the beach, and that sort of thing. People care about mobility, transportation, and then how do we really come out strong from this recession? How do we really do what we need to do to get the California dream back on track? I
want to talk about the environment in the context of water.
Sure.
As you know, we are facing a dramatic water crisis.
Absolutely.
It's a crisis that some say we have not had in this region for 500 years. We're doing everything we can as Angelenos, as Californians, to try to decrease our water usage. The numbers look fairly strong on that front, but it's still very serious. What are your folks saying? Are they aware of the severity of this crisis?
Well, as I said, I was just in Avalon.
Okay.
And on Santa Catalina Island, they are excruciatingly aware of how important this crisis is. Of course, they don't, they're a separate island, so they don't have pipes to bring water to them. They don't have an aqueduct, so they're entirely self-sufficient. And so they're not able, the advantage we have in a place like Los Angeles is that if things are really bad in California, we can at least, at a premium, pay to bring in water from other parts of the country, from the Rockies, elsewhere. But in Avalon, they've gone incredible measures to try to lower usage, and they're building a deeper and deeper well, and they're trying to deal with transportation issues, et cetera, relating to water. Now, for the rest of us, I'm not sure. I mean, there's signs everywhere. People who pay attention, they certainly know there's a big problem. I don't know that it's really set into the psyche of LA yet.
Is that because we as a people have decided not to fine ourselves? I mean, as you know, California, the state, has authorized municipalities to pass out fines for water scofflaws, and very few jurisdictions have.
Yeah, that's right.
So should we?
Well, I think we're getting to a point where we may have to do that soon. The water, the amount of water available is getting less and less. So I think you're going to start to see local governments, utilities, county governments in the state start taking more aggressive action.
At the same time, I'm sure you also know that we will have a measure on the ballot, Proposition 1, which is a significant bond, $7.545 billion. If the polls mean anything, and I think they tend to mean something, it looks like that measure will pass. Right now it's ahead 2-1. But still, you never know what can happen. What do you make of the bond most generally? It was a grand compromise. What do you think of it?
Well, I think it's going to put us a long way along the path toward really improving our water infrastructure. The last thing we want to do is be losing water because of leaky infrastructure and just not employing all the top technical techniques and infrastructure and engineering to really make sure that we're transporting water in a smart way. It was much smaller than a lot of the advocates had asked for, and part of that's because the governor really wanted to clamp down, make sure it wasn't too big, make sure that every single project was very much tied to the current water crisis and kind of our long-term infrastructural needs. So he's stingy, he's careful, and he forced down the size of that bond. And so I think we're going to know that the projects that are going to get passed are going to be really important projects.
What was interesting to me about the bond is about a third of it, the money will be dedicated to storage. That's really another word for dams. And
also underground water, though.
It can be, but the reality is the Republicans, and this is not an aspersion, I mean, the legislative caucus that are Republicans, they want more above ground storage. my question to you, though, is it's pretty remarkable that we are at that place. I mean, 25 years ago, the word dam was a 4-letter word, not a 3-letter word. And so, you know, is there a change in thinking on the question of above ground storage?
Well, to some extent. I mean, we have to get much smarter about capping as well. And, you know, there's so much loss in evaporation. So I think my sense is that we're now much advanced in terms of environmentally sound techniques for water storage, much more than before.
Sure.
That was always one of the great concerns. The one other thing I should mention from the environmental perspective, there was this proposal to have all these enormous tunnels go under the delta. Very controversial. A lot of environmentalists in particular were very concerned about it. That's not in the water bond.
It is not in the bond.
It's keeping it out. I think it keeps it a little.
But it still could happen. The Bay Delta Conservation Plan could go.
Sure. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly how the state formulates their response.
You did mention groundwater, and you also mentioned that in Avalon they've been digging deeper and deeper for groundwater.
Right.
And there's a concern behind that, because if you go to the Central Valley, for example, we're seeing what's called subsidence, where the ground is collapsing on itself. And so there's money for groundwater in the bond, but there's also now legislation, it appears, that creates a regulatory scheme, one which we never had. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a recognition of the fact that the state's finally starting to see how important groundwater is to this kind of this broader story. There's a lot of really complicated issues, of course, about rights and who should get those rights. You know, water, of course, is liquid,
of course,
so you can suck it out from different directions, and it doesn't work in the way that land works. Where it kind of stays there, and so there's tremendously interesting issues involving property rights and making sure that people aren't freeloading or taking more than their fair share. We're also now getting into the issue of all these gold rush era use it or lose it water rights laws that have.
Aren't you a law professor?
Yes, I am.
I was going to say, so you know from this.
Yes. It's fascinating, and we, you know, the drought, of course. Never miss the opportunity that a crisis prevents. So this does provide us with an opportunity to really.
I must ask you, Professor of Law, about some of the laws that allegedly are now, we believe, were broken by members of the California State Senate. Assuming you're victorious, you'll be entering a body where 3 members have either been charged or convicted of violating the law.
And the 4th got a DUI just recently.
That is true, a misdemeanor. But be that as it may, you know, the California State Senate has seen better days. How do you kind of change that environment? I mean, look, these were individual actors. It wasn't like Shrimp Scam, which you may know about, where it was a whole host of individuals. Each one had their own individual bad act. But, you know, how do you kind of walk into there and try to say, you know, come on, guys? I mean,
it's a great question, and it's one I've actually thought a lot about. I think first of all, everyone has to lead by example. You've got to get people elected to office who are firmly committed to ethics and integrity, transparency, and good governance. People who are going into it for the right reasons. In the end of the day, if someone comes, so certainly anyone who goes into office corrupt is never going to change. The other thing is, how do we create the rules? How do we really both enforce and strengthen the laws that would dissuade those people who are teetering from making the wrong decisions?
What's so interesting, I look at specifically the Leland Yee case, California State Senator Leland Yee. In his instance, and these are the allegations, his corruption was specifically tied to fundraising. He wasn't trying to create a lifestyle for himself that was high living. I am not excusing his behavior, assuming his behavior is as depicted in the affidavit. But it does really go to the issue of the pressures of fundraising. And, you know, are we at a point where we really need to look at those pressures?
Absolutely, and it's one of the worst aspects of the experience of running for office. I knew it was a problem. I now know how much of a problem it is. The money chase is so ridiculously important in determining who gets elected to office, unfortunately. And so first of all, I'm very interested in some serious campaign finance reform. I'm very concerned about the long-term implications of the Citizens United decision.
You'll come back. We'll talk more about it.
Yes,
Promise?
Totally, absolutely.
Okay, his name is Ben Allen. He is a nominee for the California State Senate. My name is Brad Pomerantz, and this is California Edition.
Thanks.